Hi, I'm Danielle Willkens from the School of Architecture. I'm talking to you about heritage BIM, or building information modeling, and sustainable heritage tied into tourism, particularly. We've kind of grown our team over the last 2 years, essentially, of a small group initially here within Georgia Tech with Russell Gentry. Have expanded with some things with SCORE, and then have expanded largely within kind of a national realm with partners in a couple other universities, as well as some national partners like the Smithsonian and things from the National Park Service and the National Center for Preservation Training and Technology. We work very closely with someone from UPV in Valencia and also Petra, and we'll talk a little bit about like why the Petra connection. So you can tell I'm a graphics person, there's no text. But you can see our key methods are 3D scanning, 360-degree photogrammetry, aerial captures, thermal cameras, and it's actually generating these building information models. So whether that's capturing a site that is existing and trying to monitor for structural defects, environmental impacts, really doing this iterative modeling, so it's not a one and done, which is a lot of what happens with these kind of digital documentation exercises. And then those turn into documentation records that either go at a national level, we're basically trying to augment the Historic American Building Survey, so it's actually more representative of the types of buildings that are in the United States. So for example, less than 2% of the structures documented relate to African American history, so that's a big thing that we're working on, particularly here in the South. But then we're also working internationally to help document critical sites like Petra, which are experiencing pretty substantial environmental, but also human-induced erosion because tourists behave badly and touch things that they shouldn't and go places they shouldn't go. So we're doing some iterative captures there. Obviously, this is one where we've had a little bit of a hiccup because of conflicts in our world. So some of our work is on pause and being done remotely at the moment, but we're still working really closely, and there's 2 QR codes if you want to use those to take a virtual tour of either the Penn Center on St. Helena Island in South Carolina, or for part of Petra, and you can actually walk into a structure that public is not allowed to go into, where Bedouins still live. So you're welcome to check those out. Our next elements, and the video is not playing, so we'll see if we can make that work. Oops, sorry. There's a little embedded one.
So this is a PDF.
So it wasn't behaving. Okay, it should have tagged. That's okay. There is a video there that takes you through one of the big things that's coming up is we're coming to the 60th anniversary of a lot of critical civil rights sites, particularly here in Atlanta, in Selma, Alabama, and other spaces, particularly in the Southeast. So we're starting to do some digital modeling of what sites would have looked like then compared to what they look like now. And for areas like Sweet Auburn, that showcases essentially 43% losses in the historic district. This is not something we should be proud of. So how do we ensure that those don't continue to degrade? And what can we do to better educate the public and do outreach for interpretation so that people understand what those sites were like? Our next steps are really kind of folding in some other environmental monitoring aspects related to coastal seawater rise. Also CO2 contamination, which is something that we are sort of recently tapping into with our project partners in Valencia. Think about going to a historic site. You go to a big cathedral, you don't really think about it, but think about all of the people that are inside of there. We've actually registered really high levels of CO2 to the extent of like standing within downtown New York City. It's the same level of CO2 that you're getting within some of these historic sites. So how do we actually mitigate that and ensure that our heritage isn't actually making us sick, and also that we're preserving the buildings? So those are some things that we're looking into. So like carbon capture and monitoring is something we're really excited about looking into, CO2 as well. So looking after bigger grants for NSF and EPA, because as you can imagine, within the heritage world, that often doesn't have a big dollar amount attached to it unless we're working with something like USAID. So thank you.